All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I'm your host, Damon Pistulka, and I am excited today because with me, I've got Margo Waldie. Welcome, Margo. I'm going to switch this around here too. There we go.
Definitely. Damon, thank you so much for having me. I'm super happy to be here, and I'm not usually a guest on other people's shows.
I
So this is a
know.
little bit different.
It's fun. It's fun because we get to switch it around. So I was fortunate enough to be on your show last week. I think it was. Yeah, last
Yeah.
week. And it was a
Cargo
lot of fun.
Margo.
Yeah, Cargo Margo. So if people don't know, we're going to be talking about increasing supply chain profitability. Crazy times for people that are in anything that has to do with shipping anything, which I don't know anything that doesn't get shipped. And I think I've used anything at least 10 times already in these sentences, but it just affects everyone. It affects everyone. And so I'm really excited to have you here today, Margo, to tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into what you did. Because you've been in logistics and moving stuff around for most of your career, correct?
Yeah, it was interesting. After I graduated University of San Francisco, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I had majored in business corporate communications, and I knew I liked people, communicating with people, but I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to move into. Conway Freight. I don't know if anyone remembers Conway Freight, but this was about, okay, cool, 16
Yeah,
years
yeah.
ago. They
Well,
had a business development program. And so I entered into that program, basically learned the ins and outs of the industry, transportation. And through that business development training, you could shadow other operations,
mm-hmm.
teams, you could shadow the sales teams, pricing, and then basically, coupled with your strengths and passions, decide, where you wanted to go. And that's really how I started in the industry.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. Because I mean, when you look back, when you started, it was at the kind of the forefront of the Amazon. I mean, really, we didn't even because that was a couple years ago. Let's say it's a couple years ago, not a ton of years ago, but it was a
But
couple.
I had to deal with the recession, and that was really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So when I first started selling, I mean, I feel like you could close business anywhere.
Yeah.
People were shipping, things were they were going great.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 2 years into it, you
That's
saw all
right.
the changes that were happening. People were getting laid off, businesses were closing.
I never thought about
Similar,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and similar to kind of what we're going through, post pandemic. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of changes, a lot of supply chain being shaken up.
Yeah.
And so people had to get creative. People were wearing different hats at the time, just like now.
Yeah.
And so it was similar. You go out and you buy your dollar pizza at your favorite place or Taco Tuesday. Even those of us that have bought furniture lately, we're all feeling it.
Oh yeah.
And these dislocations are coming from I believe, the pandemic.
Yeah. Oh, there. Let's just start to uncover this a little bit because I think it's cool to have someone that's right at the front line of the industry like yourself in here because and you glossed over this a little bit. So I'm going to look at your LinkedIn profile a bit here and we're going to talk some because your experience, you're not really giving it justice. So
Thank you.
you were at XPO Logistics for a while, you're at Old Dominion, you're at now dependable supply chain services, and you've been at Dart Entities for 4 years. I mean, you've been in this for a while. You lived it. You've had to sell into it, like you said. Through now, you went through the recession in 08. Now you're back into COVID, through it, coming out of it, and with Dart Entities, it's got to be super exciting because when you started the e-commerce and the whole shipping it right away, individual item right away, everything before was big quantities going to the box stores and people taking it from there and maybe some e-commerce. But now in the last 15 years, that's, we how many box stores are dying? And for every box store that dies, how many individual shipments does that mean that we're doing? And so go ahead. Go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned JIT, just in time.
Yeah.
And that's really that Amazon effect that you touched on. All of
Yeah.
us need something right now. We're not willing to
Yeah.
wait. We're not
Yeah.
willing to drive 5 miles, find a parking spot, and mull through a store. We want it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So how much how much of what you see and what you deal with anymore is bulk freight, truckloads moving, or more of a combination of, I might move bulk freight into a facility, but then I want to drop ship to individuals out of that, what's comparatively and kind of the changes that you've seen in that.
No, definitely. I think that when you're looking at how someone is utilizing modes of transportation and what modes of transportation they're utilizing, that really depends on a couple things. There's so many layers. So, for instance, geographically, where are they located? Where are their manufacturing plants located? And most importantly, where are their customers located?
Mm-hmm.
And with transportation, some of the major supply chain issues, if you will, are related to transportation. So whether it's making sure you're controlling your transportation costs, you're utilizing the correct modalities to get your freight to whether it be your next DC or to a store.
Yep.
Super important. Capacity. Are you using assets? Are you using brokers, or maybe a mix of those? And I don't think that there's necessarily one right way. I think that the most important aspect of it is to really analyze your processes and how they come together, transportation, fulfillment, the end user. It's really like a puzzle, and you want those pieces to fit. Otherwise, you're going to get that disruption in your supply chain, and your customers ultimately feel that pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We talk about modality. It's funny you said that because I live in Seattle, and we're right near the north south train. The rail line's not far from our house because we live in north of Seattle in Edmonds, and we were noticing a train going by last night or the night before, and it was completely full of containers, and then the semi trailers that are on the rail cars going is and it made me think about all the different ways that freight is moving around us and our products are moving around us every single day. Do you think that this has gotten more complex over the years, or there's systems and ways to handle it has gotten easier for manufacturers and distributors and retailers?
I think it's easier based on the technology that we have today and the support and knowledge based on all these previous experiences.
Uh-huh.
The thing is that you need to partner with, whether it be a consultant, an asset-based company, or even someone that's involved in brokerage that has the knowledge base and the experience to help you strategize when you're looking at moving freight, importing freight, working with a warehousing fulfillment center. It's really important to have someone that's knowledgeable and has that experience. And then, of course, coupled with your knowledge of your business, the scope of work that you're looking to outsource, and your product, because you're
Mm-hmm.
the one that knows all of the special intricacies of your product and your customer. And really, here at Dart, for example, we put on our customer's uniform, and we're working through their scope of work, whatever that might be. We definitely look back and we analyze those processes and help them streamline them so that they're saving money overall. But I definitely think it really depends on your end consumer and the product and where you're located.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because that is the thing that's interesting to me when you look at some of our clients and their suppliers and the things that are happening is the importance of having, if you're a decent sized e-commerce supplier now and you're on the West Coast and you don't have an East Coast presence, it really hurts you because you can't get product to your customers fast enough, or multiple facilities, to be able to get around the United States to get product to customers. So do you see that companies are trying to do that multi-distribution centers just to get closer to the customers?
Yeah, you'll see a mix. So you see store layouts geographically, you'll see store layouts and DC layouts, so distribution centers.
Yeah.
And depending on whether or not Dart Entities is feeding one of their DCs or feeding the store, so the end user, it really varies. But again, I go back to you want to look and control your costs. You also want to have that support of capacity with your asset based providers. And again, it's really looking geographically at how you can service your customers within that next day point. Because, like I mentioned, and you mentioned earlier, it's that Amazon Prime shipping. We want it now. So, really, I think looking at what you have going on geographically, analyzing the scope of work at each of those locations while managing transportation. I mean, this is a lot. You can really save a lot of money. But again, I'm going to go back to the transportation, controlling the costs, making sure you
Yeah.
have that capacity in that service.
Yeah. That's cool because it is. And as you were talking about it, I was just thinking about the way the business models have changed for stores, right? Because for me, we have Nordstrom's close to us. And not that I go there very much. If anyone sees how I dress, it's not that I dress great. But the thing is that I know that their store sizes have been reduced over the years because a lot more of their product is come in and see it in the store, but we'll ship it to you at home. They have some of each size, but they don't have the big stacks of the inventory like they used to because they ship it from their distribution centers. And do you find that your customers at Dart are using that at some places where I might have a store that's actually or a customer base that's really close and we keep lower amounts of inventory in stores and direct ship maybe bigger items or, because if I'm selling washing machines or something like that, I don't even have 27 pairs of the same washing machine in a store. I could have 3, and then my distribution center could actually even ship those out if people would rather do that. Do you see those kind of different scenarios happening?
Yeah, they are happening, Damon. And also, just, I mean, one real simple reason why is space constraints.
Yes.
Industrial property is at a peak right now. People are fighting for that capacity. And so, like you said, these smaller store footprints can't hold that extra inventory like a fulfillment center can.
Yeah. 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 Because it's got to be interesting for you to be able to dive in with some of these customers and really get your team looking at the way that they do things and being able to come up with innovative solutions for this.
Absolutely. And it's solutions that have to work with their company, their culture, their values, and their
Mm-hmm.
products, right? And so to be able to do that can be quite difficult, but once it happens, it's just fabulous as far as how the supply chain can really work for you and getting that product quick out to your customers. There's been businesses that have failed because they cannot get their supply chain right.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's a bummer. And I'm sure, you're in manufacturing and you see it.
Yes, yes. And we've had some e-commerce clients that their supply chain is their ultimate weakness. And when that's the case, you really have to, it's a tough time running the business successfully just because you have to get that in place because your product has to be there when your customers want it. And if it's not, they're just going someplace else.
Well, and that's exactly what, regardless of, any opinions on Elon Musk and Tesla, but, he looked at vertical integration and that's
Yep.
really taking control of your supply chain. And that's why he didn't have as many of these disruptions as other people had.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And it did prove out well for them. So, what are some of the, we've heard a lot of talk about, okay, supply chain, container costs, all that stuff's gone through the roof. And now the fuel surcharges, I don't even want to think about what they're going to do or are doing. Um, in fact, I need to write that down because there's a couple of things that I need to look at on that because I'm sure that's going to increase some things that I need to consider with compliance. But it's what are some of the underlying things that you see that are challenges coming up that people may not be really aware of?
For me, I think it all really starts internally. When I think about some of our partners, potential partners, people that I've worked with and for, procurement planning, forecasting, those are things that come to mind first.
Yep.
If you have an idea of what is going to be on the water, what is on the water, and you can plan receiving, put away, and picking, things could be so much more successful, streamlined, transparent. But I would say that is one of the areas where a lot of people struggle, is just in that forecasting, in that planning phase.
Yeah, and you hit 3 points that I think people they're really good if I'm buying something, making sure I have that container or that truckload coming. But when you have 100 truckloads coming, you look at receiving, put away, and then picking for those orders. That's where a lot of times they fall down, at least in the people that
Well,
we work with.
and when you can forecast properly, then your partners are able to forecast properly to support that business coming in, right? So, labor management.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that's what's happening right now, with a lot of these supply chain issues, is labor management. So if we could forecast and get all of that labor
Mm-hmm.
in line, things would run really smooth.
Well, and two, then you're leveling your labor needs out. You're not using too much overtime. You're reducing your cost to do those functions if you can keep it steadier.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
at the same time, you're managing your customers' expectations, right? And I think the other thing about that is managing quality and inventory accuracy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
Yep.
another big one that comes up.
Yep.
It
Yep.
you think it's pretty easy taking note of what you have. I mean, Damon, I could ask you what you have in your pantry and fridge right now, and I'm sure you feel confident that you would know, but there's going to be some items in there that you forgot, or some items that you thought were in there. So I think that,
Yeah.
inventory accuracy is so big and plays such a huge part in the supply chain.
Yes, that is something that it is funny you said pantry, because Jeff Lem, somebody that he's in Canada, does warehouse stuff. He's not, I shouldn't just say warehouse stuff. That's a drastic understatement. He's written a book on warehousing and developed some nice courses on it and things. And he looks at it, his book is called, I've got it lying here. It's so funny because you said something about your pantry. Your warehouse is not your fridge.
Oh, I love that. And is he on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that
yeah.
is so cool.
Jeff Lem, Lem. But and so when you say your pantry, you're right. It's not like that. Your warehouse, you have to the receiving, the put away, what inventory goes where and why, and all that stuff to help along with the planning,
Yeah.
because as you see in the companies, and you see a lot in Dart there, I'm sure, is you're in fulfillment to the customer. When you're not talking about truckload quantities, it's much different, and the planning is, or that is much more, it's more critical. It's just the picking of orders and the shipping of the individual orders. If you're going to ship thousands of orders a day, you got to get really good at picking and shipping orders.
Well, and think about how many times you've ordered something and you open the box and there's extra items that you didn't order, or there's
Mm-hmm.
items missing.
Oh yeah.
And
Yep.
the time and the money that it takes to return, right? To
Yes.
return an item.
Yes. Yes. That's for sure. That's for sure. So accuracy of the actual fulfillment is huge.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think technology, so we have yard management systems, we have warehouse management systems, we have transportation management systems. These are really important.
Yes.
Really important. And one of the issues that I hear often is we have these systems in place, but to extract data that we can actually use to make proper changes to level up our supply chain, that can be difficult. So I'm not going to give any recommendations on systems, but I think it's
Yeah.
important to look into these systems, make sure that your supply chain tech stack is current and you have support in that arena.
Well, and how many years has it been since you said those words for the first time? Your supply chain tech stack? Did people even think about that 15 years ago? Probably, it was probably not nearly as much as today if they did. But
Yeah.
it's critical, as you said. And the other thing that you said, I think is super important, is if you can't make meaningful changes with the data, it's worthless to you. And you hit it. You said you don't have data to drive the right changes, or you can't get the data out to drive the right changes. And that's when you're looking at those systems, it is important to do that. And as you said from the beginning, your planning and forecasting is key to really being the most efficient, having the most efficient supply chain you can have.
Definitely. I mean, when you're looking at some of our clients, they're bringing us in a couple hundred containers a week. And
Yes.
so a yard management system is super important when you need to find one container out of the 300 that you have in your yard.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Go
I think
ahead.
that, well, yeah, and the data, it also helps us manage that labor. Like I mentioned, it helps you support you in holding your teams accountable as well. So there's different layers to
Mm-hmm.
having a solid tech stack.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, when you think about the things about, like you said, I've got a couple hundred containers out there. And that's sitting outside of my distribution center here. And I've got multiple distribution centers around the United States with the same hundreds of containers outside there from lots of different customers trying to do this. And I've got in that same inventory inside, and I'm going out with individually fulfilled orders or truckloads of product. That's a heck of a job.
Yeah, and especially too, I mean, think about it. I was on a call earlier and we were talking about the different manufacturing plants they have and what they're feeding into their current DCs. So that's interesting as well. So when you have to marry up product and it's
Oh
going
yeah.
into another DC, it's not just moving from point A to point B. There are a lot of things that happen in between then, and timing is everything. So that's why when I said transportation management, your vendor relationships, your carrier supplier relationships, those are super important.
Yes. Yeah, and if you're a big manufacturer, and I've got one plant that makes one piece of another assembly, and if I don't make the whole thing in one facility, that adds a ton more complexity, because you've got on the road stock, you've got stock in the yard, you've got stock maybe a little stock in the manufacturing facility you're using it, and some stock in the facility where you're producing it. And that could be multiple facilities feeding into multiple facilities that then feed into distribution centers.
Yeah, and it really depends on, again, the scope of work and the commodity too. So you're looking at, let's say, a heavy commodity where you have to use rail. And so you're looking at that intermodal piece, that rail piece to go into the DCs, but then you're going to convert it to truck. So
Yeah.
there's so many restrictions to think about too, as
Oh
far as
man.
your products.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. This is awesome to get to just think about some of the stuff that you guys are doing there at Dart, and the challenges that you get to solve. So let's go to that. Let's go to that. What are some of the most interesting challenges that you've been able to solve in the last couple of years?
So one of the first one that comes to mind is kind of what I mentioned earlier, is looking at the commodities coming out of manufacturing plants and getting them to a DC. And one of these was a manufacturing plant that was also doing cold and dry goods. And
Oh,
so to combine the cold and dry and get it to the DC in time, and then out from that DC that we're feeding out to their stores. And
wow.
so we didn't do any of the transportation, but we did a lot of the labor behind that. And so that was really interesting as well, because when you're looking at cold frozen storage versus dry goods, it's completely different. It's a completely different scope of work in our world, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the people that are handling the materials, their experience is different. The equipment that they're utilizing is different. So you have all of that into that mix. And so, like I said, that's why you want to really go with a provider that has the experience with your commodity and that scope of work that you're looking to fulfill.
Yes. That's an awesome example because the complexity, like you said, alone, if you're moving the frozen, you certainly don't want it to thaw, and the dry goods, you probably don't necessarily need them to be frozen. And there's just a lot of things to consider in that.
Well, and
Wow.
I think that with the team too. So labor, right? We want to make all of our teammates feel special and welcomed and really be able to fulfill what is their passion in the
Mm-hmm.
industry. And so, only certain people want to work in a frozen cold environment.
Mm-hmm.
Just like there's only certain people that want to work in the dry environment, or
Yes.
certain people that are okay to lump trailers throughout the day. When we open up that container, you never know what you're going to get.
Yes.
So there's a lot of moving parts in that sense. And so you really want to make your team feel valued and, really special, because they are, and they're
Yes.
working very hard on these different scopes. So that's another
Yes.
thing to think about. It's just, I always go back to the labor aspect.
Oh, no doubt. That is fundamental, because if people haven't seen what it takes in terms of things coming off of a container and the whole warehousing process and fulfillment process to get it to you, uh, they should appreciate the people that put in a lot of work to get it there. It's
Yeah.
something. So you talked a little bit about passion. So you definitely like logistics. So you were in the Los Angeles area there. So we talked about you had a few dogs. So
That's
that's
correct. Yeah.
that sounds like fun. So what kind of dogs do you have?
So I have 3 dogs. I have a German Shepherd, a Bichon Poodle, and a Chihuahua. And then I
Oh,
also have 2 bunnies, Neverland Dwarf bunnies, and 1 California Desert Tortoise. It's a circus.
no doubt. Just when you just
And
said the dogs, because it's like German Shepherd and then the Bouchon and then the Chihuahua. And then you said the bunnies and then the turtle. Oh my goodness.
yeah,
You're
yeah, it's
busy.
crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, no, I want a horse. I know I'm nuts. So
Yeah.
hopefully in about 5 years, I'll have my horse in the backyard. I hope my husband's not watching. He's going to be like, "What?"
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, because that keeps you busy.
It does. And the 3 girls, they keep me on my toes. I
Yeah.
have my daughter turned 9 yesterday,
Oh,
and
awesome.
yeah, happy birthday, Maxwell. And then I have a 7-year-old, and I still call her my baby. She turns 2 on the 30th. She was my pandemic baby.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. You are in for the time of your life. Because
You're
I
scaring me.
no, it's awesome. It's awesome. I absolutely cherish the time I had raising kids. My kids are in their 20s, in the late 20s now, young to late 20s. And I'm going to tell you, you are in for some of the most incredible times in your life. Your kids, when they start to do things like band, or they decide they want to be in choir or play some sports or whatever the heck it is they want to do, just reading books, playing chess, it doesn't matter. It's just so much fun. And
You're right. You're right. I love the girls are into horseback riding, and I love watching them. It's amazing. Damon, I'm nervous about high school.
you should be. You should be. You should be. That's all I'll tell you. Because when we went through it, and our daughter's 27 now, and it is as they say, they come full circle. It's like I still remember, and I told somebody this yesterday. It broke my heart when my son quit holding my hand walking across the street. I can remember when he was 12 and he said, "Dad, you don't need to hold my hand anymore." And I'm like, oh, okay. But
Oh
their daughter,
no.
the whole high school thing, and you get to that teenage years, they go off on their own. But then when it's like in their early 20s, it kind of starts. They're in college and they get to this later years in college, or that age, in the 20s, 22, 23, they start to think about, mom and dad might not be so dumb. So you've made it from, we're a complete idiot to now we're like not so dumb. So it's progress. It's progress, right? And
Absolutely.
and it's great though. It's great though when they get a little bit older. Now my daughter, I think when she turned 24, 25, it was like it's just fun. We have fun now, and it's a lot different. But you are in a very special time, and I've got friends with kids that are similar ages, and it's so much fun. I'm just so happy for you to have that opportunity.
They are cute little nightmares. They are. It is. I was telling someone they're expecting, and I said it's the best stage. They're the cutest, but it's not going to get better until they're about 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yep. That's good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's get back to just a little bit more about supply chain, because I always like to let people learn a little bit more about the people that I'm talking to. And that was awesome. And yeah, I'm just happy for you. I'll be giggling and laughing about that for the rest of the day. So when we look at the supply chain challenges coming to people now, what are some of the things that that you just say, this is the biggest thing that's going to hit us in the next 12 months, other than fuel costs? Everybody sees that, but that's,
labor.
Yeah.
Labor. We need to plan for labor. We need to be understanding in regards to the environment that we're currently in. Right now, everyone is fighting for the same people.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And it's easy. So for providers to flex up 25%, I mentioned forecasting, getting accurate forecasts, but it's really difficult when you tell a provider that, we're bringing X amount of containers in, and then it's, 50% higher than what was planned. And we see that. We definitely see that. I mean, it's the same on the other end, but so I think just having that understanding that right now labor is tight, and we have great partnerships and we have the labor ready. But if we could get that accurate forecasting to plan labor, things would be perfect.
Yeah, you're right, because the flexing up and flexing down is painful, because if you're planning on 200 containers and you get 45, you got a lot of people standing around, and conversely on the other side, it doesn't do anybody good either when you've got 250 and you're planning for 200.
Absolutely. And that was the second point in poor labor management. That is definitely an issue that we see, is poor labor management.
Well, yeah, in the warehouse, and warehousing operations, that has to be one of your largest costs. And
it is. And it's interesting when we like to tour potential customers' facilities and our customers' facilities. And it's then sometimes that you'll see that there are improvements that could be made, and that you want to help make these improvements so that your customer can focus on their product and marketing that product.
That's a great point. And I thought about this before we got on, and I haven't asked it yet, because, if I'm a manufacturer and I'm doing my own warehousing is a much smaller overall portion of my cost structure and other things like that. Whereas you at Dart there, that's what you do. Do you see that because I was thinking about this, right? I'm a big manufacturer, and I'm making stuff, and my supply chain, or just getting my product out the door and onto trucks, is such a little part of the overall that I do. Do you see that you're a lot more efficient because you have to be in your business to make money and be successful, compared to some of the manufacturers where it's not their focus?
Absolutely, 110%, Damon. And with all due respect, I mean, we want to be able to help. We want to utilize our expertise and our knowledge, and really, level up these supply chains where people need that help. You want to focus on your product, marketing your product, selling your product.
Mm-hmm.
Supply chain, I think that the misconception of supply chain is that it's easier, more simplistic than it really is. And there are more moving parts than people expect. And so they want that control. I've seen a couple things. I've seen startups to mid-sized businesses, come to me and say, handle all of our fulfillment, all of everything. And they're just not ready for it. I mean, they could handle it out of their garage, just like
Yeah.
Spanx. It's not necessary. And then I see the startups, mid-sized companies, they're ready for a 3PL provider, but my mom does all the picking and packing. And my dad does all the labeling, Margo. I don't want to put my family out of a job.
Yeah.
And you don't have to, because what happens at that point when you're scaling is you're bringing in that technology, you're bringing in that management, the labor management, and now your mom and your dad, they're managing the transportation at a higher level. They're not just sticking a label on a box. I made that sound a lot easier than it is, but it's going to be a higher level view. And so they'll still be incorporated in the business. We're not looking to cut heads. In fact, I think that when you look at the supply chain and increasing profitability through that supply chain, you're going to be able to add more people to your business.
Yeah.
We're not looking to cut heads. Yes.
You can scale your business because you're getting your product to your customers faster, and man, it's going out the door better. And that helps you to make more business or more sales. That will help you to increase the profitability. And you're right. And you can upscale, or not upscale, but level up some of your people and give them advantage or opportunities that they may not have had. That's cool, because it was something I was thinking about, because you can then help your customers be better in their operations so you can be more successful helping them.
Exactly.
If they can't get you the stuff like you want, or inconsistently and blah, 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 there's a million different things that could happen. Then it's going to cost you more on your end to handle and do what you need to do.
Definitely. And that's why you have to manage all these working parts. So you think about the raw materials, and then you think about the packaging as well. And so all of that just kind of ties into the end product and getting it to your customer as fast as possible before the competition does.
Yeah.
I mean, you really just want to be easy to do business with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Because that, man, it is so much more complex. The supply chain is so much more complex. It is. It's the complexity has gotten crazy with the amount of, you can be sourcing. I mean, we did a project, and this is a lot of years ago. We did a project where we were sourcing off of like 4 continents, and that was crazy in those days, because it was.
But Damon, people are not doing that enough now, right?
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So pre-pandemic, 70% was coming out of China. And I have some counterparts, good friends in the industry that do freight forwarding. And a couple of them were laid off because everything shut down. But mind you, right before this, people were looking at Vietnam, Taiwan, and they were already starting to look at other places that they could manufacture. And so they had a head start. And you could see that those are the companies that were really successful in this because they differentiated their manufacturing. After this, people are doing that now again. Now, how many manufacturers or where geographically they're placed, definitely want to analyze that, take a look at it to streamline. But I think it's a good idea. You don't always want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good point. So, yeah, that's awesome. The thing that I think that I've learned today talking to you here is that you really need some good partners to look at this, because it's not something you're just going to wake up and know.
Finding someone that has experience and knowledge that can help walk you through this in a basic way will help you tremendously. I highly recommend it. I am here as a free resource. People can contact me. I can walk them through scenarios. I'd be more than happy to. It is really complicated, but it can be broken down into pieces that are understandable so that you can really take that and move your supply chain to the next level. And like I said, for that 1,000th time, focus on that product and your customer.
Yeah. Do what you're good at and have partners to help you do the other things that you need done that they're good at.
Yeah, because I mean, if think about your manufacturing, I don't know if you look at units per hour, units of measurement. I mean, these are things that we're constantly looking at a daily basis. We look at slotting optimization, different things that we can do to really save money in the supply chain so that you can grow in other ways. So I would just suggest getting with a trusted advisor, whoever that may be. Even there's some retired people out there, and there's some great people that are in the industry currently, but start those conversations. They'll be helpful.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Margo, it's been great to talk to you today. Thanks so much for stopping by, and just your the Cargo Margo show. If people hadn't listened to that, you got to listen to it. It's great. Wonderful host. I will put that in there too.
Thank you.
And then the work that you're doing to help people with their supply chain and just improving the effectiveness and then increasing the profitability in their supply chain is awesome, because it's something that manufacturers, retailers, and anybody that's moving products that have to go someplace else really need to be looking at.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm here. Connect with me. I'd love to help you out and give you some information and some resources.
All right.
Thank you so much, Damon.
It's awesome. It's awesome to have you on finally. And so on LinkedIn, you are Margo Waldie, if people didn't know that. So that's, you can find her on LinkedIn. Just want to make sure I get that out there. We'll have DART entities and the other stuff in all the show notes here. And if anyone needs to, you can reach out to Margo, connect with her on LinkedIn. And if you can't find her for some reason, reach out to me. And I just want to say thank you for being here. It was a pleasure. And we'll have to have you back sometime again, and we'll figure out something else fun to talk about.
I love it. Thank you, Damon. Right. You're amazing. I appreciate it. Honored. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You bet. Everyone else, thanks so much for being here. We will be back again next week.